Good morning. Happy Saturday, everyone. And I hope everyone had a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day. Then again, if you're actually watching this right now, you would have to be alive and not alive, considering that yesterday is a party day. But regardless, I hope everyone had a happy St. Patrick's Day. I hope you had yourself, some corned beef and cabbage, a nice pint of Guinness, whatever else Irish things I can think of. I hope you all wore green. I had green on. Just St. Patrick's Day as a whole, that was my high. Well, then plus I binge watched a show that I'm very excited to talk about for a lot of reasons that I will be doing today. And did I really have a low? Well, actually, I guess I do kind of have a bit of a low. See, for those of you who don't already know, my mom had surgery on her wrist a few months ago. And it's pretty major surgery. And so she's been out of work for the last several months because of that. So today is her first day back. And I can tell right away she's really stressed about it. I mean, listen, going back to work after a long time really shouldn't be that much different than, say, going back to school after summer vacation. I mean, I'm sure that by maybe noon, she'll be fine. Excuse me. By noon, she'll act like she had nothing to worry about. But, I mean, it can be hard to be off for a long time, just get back into the swing of things. I mean, listen, everyone at the hospital, because she's a nurse, she works at the hospital, everyone in the hospital knows that she's been through surgery, and they know that, she really shouldn't overexert herself, specifically her wrist. So they'll at least be courteous about that sort of thing. But, you can't help but feel worried. And I get that. It's totally fine. I'm sure I really am hoping she has a nice day, of course. But I can definitely say, considering that yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, we got the dispensation, so we were able to have corned beef and cabbage as a family. And afterwards, we went to Sam's Club we shopped for a few things. And we also went to Baskin Robbins for some ice cream. It was I would say that'd be a pretty good last day. I'm glad I was able to share in her last day before she has to go back to work. So there's that. And my act of kindness was, I helped clean up the kitchen, specifically clear the dishwasher out. So I did all that. And even though my mom technically didn't really care for this, I still consider this an act of kindness. If you look at my social media, I took photos of the corned beef and cabbage that we have, specifically the fact I stirred everything, and my mom didn't really want that. She would rather have me kept everything in the crock pot, with the exception of the corned beef, and slice it up thin, and you'd get your own cabbage and everything else after the fact. I mean, forgive me for wanting to make a good presentation, okay? So, with that said, yesterday and a little bit this morning, I was finishing up binge watching a show I've been looking forward to seeing for a while that premiered on Netflix yesterday. Question, was Elvis Presley Irish? Because it would probably make a lot more sense if they actually aired this show on Netflix if he was. Again, considering yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. But the show I'm referring to is Agent Elvis. Now, before I talk about it, full disclosure, this show may not be for everyone. There is a lot of curse words, some gratuitous violence, and hardcore action. If that's not your thing, you're not going to like this show. And also, if you are a diehard fan of Elvis, but don't like the idea of him being, for lack of a better analogy, a badass secret agent with a little historical fiction added to this, you're also not going to like this show. Personally, I am a fan of historical fiction. I love Elvis Presley. So, this show is right up my alley. Although, the real reason I'll get to in a minute. But before I get into that real reason, I need to talk about the cast. This is like, it's not quite the level of casting that the Legend of Vox Machina has, but it's up there. It's up there to be sure. I mean, just the supporting cast alone, you got the likes of Tara Strong, Gary Anthony Williams, Jamie Costa, Asif Ali, Cree Summer, D. Bradley Baker, Carlos Alazraqui, the list goes on and on. And, I mean, of course you have the main cast as well, which is a great cast. I mean, Don Cheadle as the commander, Niecy Nash as Birdie, Caitlin Olsen as CC Ryder, Johnny Knoxville as Bobby Ray. I love Johnny Knoxville. I'm glad they actually utilized Johnny Knoxville effectively in the show, I feel. For those of you who don't know, in the show, Johnny Knoxville plays Bobby Ray, Elvis's best friend and right-hand man in the show. His other best friend is the chimpanzee sidekick Scatter, played by SpongeBob SquarePants himself, Tom Kenny. And one of the best lines in this whole show is when Elvis says, Bobby Ray's my right hand. Scatter is the grenade in my other hand. It's awesome. It just totally works. I mean, Scatter gets drugged up all the time and high and drunk. Bobby Ray is like a genius, but they also show off how much of a Southern person he is. But what makes this show work for me, and this is the part I'm sure y'all are waiting for, Matthew McConaughey himself as Elvis Presley. I mean, I wasn't going to say this, but you could say his performance was, all right. No, but seriously, McConaughey himself is great in this show. Holy cow. And what's great about this show is, it's very self-aware. Specifically how, particularly after Elvis got back from the war, and I mentioned this after Austin Butler's episode of Hot Ones, Elvis didn't really want to do, the stuff he was doing, in terms of being a musician the way he was after the war. He really wanted to be a more serious actor. And this show kind of plays around with that a little bit. Only instead of being an actor, it's more along the lines of being a secret agent. And it's awesome. Especially when in this organization, particularly with Don Cheadle as the commander, who's seedy, but also really kind of funny at the same time, you do not know, who the main bad guy is or whatever. You also don't know that, spoiler, there's a traitor amongst you until the very end. And the ultimate project of, the ultimate scheme of the diabolical plan, I'll get into the main villains, the final villain of the show's plan in a moment, is back when Elvis was in the Army and he was drafted, the commander himself drafted him. He said he was subject to something called Project Tupelo. Basically, before Elvis went to the Army, he was already famous. He had legions of fans, women yelling and cheering for him, the whole 9 yards. Everyone who knows about Elvis Presley knows that. So the folks over at TCB, known as the Central Bureau, I think it's on the Central Bureau. Anyway, they said, if I got that wrong, I'm so sorry. They thought, why don't we utilize that and make, agents and soldiers? And they tried doing that using Elvis's voice and some of his DNA to make these devices or modules that can emit his sound and frequency, and it makes people go completely insane. Think Kingsman, the first Kingsman movie, only instead of just like some sort of generic sort of whining sound that you may or may not be able to hear, they are being blatantly obvious what sound is causing this. It's Elvis's music. And it turns out the bad guys got a hold of this technology from a traitor. Who the traitor is also a TCB agent, because obviously that's how a traitor works. Duh. By Robert Goulet, voiced by Ed Helms, who was really good, by the way. And the final outcome is let me talk about the villain, because they do at least give the villain a backstory, but I'm not going to quite say it was weak. It was just kind of out of left field. I mean, I am kind of glad they kind of saved it at the very end. And again, they did give the villain a backstory, so I'm not necessarily, I don't find it wrong necessarily. But I do understand that some people are going to see that as a problem. The main villain of this show is Gabriel Wolf, who many years ago he was listening to Elvis music in his room, and his father, who was like a televised one of them Southern preachers that thought Elvis was the devil back then, he was trying to burn an Elvis record, and what can only be described as a little giant gust of wind, it created a big fire, and it destroyed everything. And Gabriel was like, Elvis Presley, you killed my daddy. So he spent many years coming up with this scheme to use Elvis's music against the world, because it really would destroy the world. Which, shortly after that, because in the penultimate episode, Elvis is like, I quit, forget this. So CC Ryder, played by Caitlin Olsen, she shows up, Caitlin Olsen, played by Caitlin Olsen, be sure I pronounce that correctly. She shows up, and she tells Elvis, the world doesn't revolve around you. And then Elvis does this, pointing to a legion of fans cheering behind him. He does, and they stop cheering. And then he's like, want to bet? That is my favorite joke of the entire show. It's the best way you could ever hope to do that. Man, this is a really good show. This is a really good show. And to me, it's McConaughey that sells it. Because, come on guys, it's Matthew McConaughey. I mean, don't get me wrong. The first time I legit saw Matthew McConaughey in a movie was Wolf of Wall Street. Which is a movie I should do a movies on at some point. When he's going like, like that. I love that. I'm like, man, I wish like I was still in high school when that movie came out, because like I could see a lot of people I know doing that. I mean, I fell in love with McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club, but I first really took notice of him doing, Wolf of Wall Street. Yeah, full disclosure, I never really saw Dazed and Confused. I was too young to watch it back then. Wait, I'm a full-grown man. I should be watching. There's a lot of movies I should be watching. Holy cow. Anyway, Matthew McConaughey is great. listen, I'm sure a lot of people are a bit taken back by the fact that, yeah, it's historical fiction. Obviously, it's not real. Or some people probably completely take offense to the fact that, you know, Lisa Presley, Elvis Presley's daughter, just recently passed away. They're totally cashing in on the fact that Elvis, the movie that came out, starring Austin Butler last year, was nominated for Best Picture. I think Austin Butler was also nominated for Best Actor, too. He lost to Brendan Fraser, but I mean, I think the world was happy for Brendan Fraser. Let's be real here. So, yeah, you could see this as like a cheap cash grab. It's not doing Elvis Presley justice. It's not worth your time. I mean, at the end of the day, you're entitled to your own opinion. If you really feel that way, by all accounts, I'm certainly not going to stop you. But I would like to point out that Elvis Presley's widow herself, Priscilla Presley, legit gave this show her blessing. How do I know this? Well, apart from also being part executive producer, she legit plays herself in the show. Yes, Priscilla Presley plays herself in a show, a fantasized show about her late husband. I mean, if that's not a sign of giving a show a blessing, I don't know what is. Not to mention, the show is also animated by Titmouse, the very same folks behind Vox Machina. And the animation's great in this show. I mean, it's not as like close to Avatar: The Last Airbender as Vox Machina is. It's kind of its own style, but it works. Honestly, this show's fantastic. Great animation company, great cast. It's got the blessing of Elvis's widow herself. And it's got the right man for the job in Matthew McConaughey as the king of rock and roll. You know, at some point I plan to do a movies on the Disney's Robin Hood, the one with the anthropomorphic animals and stuff, where Robin Hood was played by Fox and everything. I've always said this off camera, but I'm saying it here, probably the first time ever. At some point, Disney will probably have this crazy idea of doing sort of like a live action, quote unquote, Robin Hood movie. They'll probably do what they did with Lion King, just have it be like, you know, CG animals or stuff, or whatever they did for Lion King, only with, you know, sort of anthropomorphic animals, you know, sort of motion capture, whatever. I don't know what they do. Whatever they do, should they ever remake Robin Hood in live action, they gotta get Matthew McConaughey to play the rooster. There, I said it. Dab at me, say what you will, but that would be perfect casting. I don't care what anyone says. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow me on social media. As always, I am very humble in this video for all of you guys watching and joining today. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Saturday. And remember, if any of you guys want to talk, channel is going to be here to lend me. Always stay back, take care, make good choices. 607 all day, baby.